Today I'm joined by James Marple, Senior Economist at TD Bank, to discuss today's economic data from the United States. So James, first of all, today we've had the release of initial jobless claims, as well as ADP employment change for October, which came out at 158,000. Initial jobless claims in US dropped by 9,000 to 363,000. What are your views on this data?
Well, they're both positive for the U.S. labor market. The ADP has kind of been a bit hit and miss in terms of its ability to predict the more important payrolls report, which we'll get out tomorrow. But I think in both cases, both point to an improvement over some of the data we've seen over the last few months, and if it's echoed in the payroll report, certainly job growth of above 150,000 is moving at least in the right direction.
Job creation is a central concern for the U.S. economy right now. Non-farm payrolls are due out on Friday, 4 days before the U.S. elections take place. What is your outlook, James, for Friday's results, and how do you think it could impact the public's choice for the next president?
Well, we expect to see 125,000 jobs created. If the ADP, given how strong it was, there's perhaps some upside to that, but about consistent with what we saw in the previous month of September. But in terms of the election, I think if it sort of will depend on what side of expectations it comes down on. If it's relatively close to sort of the consensus of around that 125, I don't think it'll make a big difference. I mean, I think probably most decisions have been made, but if it's a good number, it's a modest positive for Obama, because it goes to his narrative, and if it's negative, of course, it will be a talking point for the Romney campaign. But I don't think it'll be a major swing. As it's been pointed out, it would be unfortunate if it was, because these initial estimates are often subject to a fair bit of error and often revised later. But certainly, it will make news either way.
U.S. factory index rose to 51.7 in October from 51.5 a month. What are your thoughts on today's ISM manufacturing and U.S. consumer confidence report?
Well, the manufacturing, good news report, better than expected. The market had been expecting a bit of a decline, basing those expectations on some of the durable goods orders that we've seen, but it improved. Manufacturing now for the second month is in expansionary territory. The sector is growing, and it's a bit in contrast to what we've seen in Purchasing Managers Index out of Europe. But also got some good news out of China today, that their manufacturing sector also pushed back into growth territory again. And I think in both cases, there's been some support from the domestic side of the economy. In the United States, you're hearing that manufacturers that are related to some of the housing market, which is starting to rebound, and even related sectors like furniture and those kind of sectors related to housing are starting to see some improvement. Similarly, I think in China they've seen some domestic support, some infrastructure spending, and of course that matters for the U.S. because a risk is that this global slowdown has really moved towards emerging economies, which are strong demanders of U.S. exports, and if that kind of can be a soft landing story, and we sort of have gotten through the worst of the slowdown in activity there, then I think that's a positive story for the U.S. and for global growth going forward. And in terms of GDP growth, do you think Hurricane Sandy will affect GDP forecasts? Well, for GDP next year, we expect growth of about 2% for the U.S. And I don't think that Sandy would result in any significant revisions to that outlook. There may be, there's obviously been disruption to business activity in the fourth quarter, but this has happened, just from an economic growth point of view, relatively early in the quarter. There will be a rebound in activity, rebuilding, and that is modestly supportive to the way GDP is calculated. Thank you very much, James, for sharing your expertise on today's data. That is all for right now, but do stay tuned to Dukascopy TV to keep up to date with the latest economic and forex news. Goodbye.